Hello and welcome to today's 5 Minute Friday. I'm delighted to be joined by Yvonne Sonsino. And Yvonne, you and I talk about a topic that I don't really talk very much with other people about, but I find absolutely fascinating, and we talk very regularly about it, which is around the older workforce. And Yvonne, your title is Global Co-Leader of Next Stage at Mercer. It's a title that is not one I'm particularly familiar with. What does that mean?
Well, our Next Stage initiative, and thanks for asking me to join you firstly, Chris. Our Next Stage initiative is looking at exactly that. What is the next stage? We know that people are living longer, working longer, and it's a whole new phase of life. Professor Andrew Scott's book, The 100-Year Life, sort of sets out the next stage quite nicely. So he talks about this whole new phase of life where people have got new things to think about, new ways to work, new ways to keep themselves occupied, new ways to finance that and look after their health. So we've been doing a lot of work in that area, exploring the employment implications of longevity, if you like.
So it's a fascinating area, and from some of the conversations you and I've had over the years, there is so much to think about. And I know you talk to a lot of particularly large organizations who are now starting to think about this particular workforce. Why should they be thinking about these workforces, and what is it that they're not thinking about, or many companies aren't thinking about that they maybe should be?
Yeah, well, take a little step back and let's understand the problem, if you like. So it's a combination of demographic trends, longevity, low interest rates, pension plan design, etc., financial resilience. So demographics is the science of populations, as we know. And we're faced with a shrinking birth rate in most developed countries. In fact, even in developing countries, the birth rate is shrinking. It was 8.5, I think, across sub-Saharan Africa. It's down to 5 now, children per family. But in the developed world, the birth rate is shrinking significantly. China was in the news recently because they've reintroduced their policy of bigger families, but actually people don't want bigger families. So that type of shrinking birth rate, coupled with increasing life expectancy, is creating a different dynamic for companies. And in terms of things like the pension design, many countries have abolished a default retirement age as well. So at that other end of the spectrum, when you're approaching what would have normally been a state retirement age and a cliff drop off, people can't be forced out of work anymore. So they're carrying on their working lives. So this whole labour shortage of younger workers and an extended working lifetime at the other end is shifting the age of the workforce up the curve. And that does bring challenges for companies. And typically the things that can fix it for people are things that can fix it for all generations. So take flexible working, for example, which I see as the great panacea for fixing stuff right across the generations. Almost all of us at some point in our lives and careers and life stages will need a temporary period of flexibility. And for working mums, for example, it's fairly obvious why you might need that, but why not for working dads as well? And why not taking career breaks for study or sports or the gap year you never had? So I think that flexible working can really help people, and certainly in later phases of life when people want to wind down a bit but not give up, and in some cases can't afford to give up, then it can be really, really useful. So we're doing a lot of work with companies at the moment around flexible work and how that morphs into flexible retirement as well.
And so it's interesting because everyone's talking about flexible work at the moment as a consequence of the fact that so many people have suddenly been working from home, and it's very much a discussion of the moment within the HR world and business community. But it sounds like it's a great thing in accelerating potentially more flexibility for older workforces, which is going to give companies the ability to tap into a workforce that potentially they weren't able to be so attractive to in the past.
Absolutely. So Unilever is a great case study here. So a few years ago, we worked together with them on this new model that they now call U-Work. So capital
Right.
U for Unilever, U-Work. And it is basically, it's a whole new employment contract. So you move off of your full-time employment contract and you move on to the new U-Work model, where you do a set amount of hours. So you've got a guaranteed income for that set amount of hours. And then you can flex up or flex down depending on what your life stage needs are. We originally aimed this at the older workforce because Unilever, they found that actually the experience and the Unilever culture meant that they needed to hang on to those people, and they were often paying a recruiter to rehire ex-Unilever workers back
Which
into
is
the
crazy.
business.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this new way enables them to have access to that pool of experienced older workers, with the flexibility that they need on both sides, both business needs and individual needs. And interestingly, what's happened is that many younger generations have also seen this model and said, well, I'd quite like a piece of
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
why can't I do that? So they've
Particularly if
opened it
I'm,
up.
yeah, particularly if I'm going to be living, if I'm going to be working a lot longer, if
Yeah.
retirement is going to be further off than maybe it was seen to be for previous generations, then I'd like more flexibility and enjoy my life more.
Yeah.
And have a better work-life balance.
Exactly. And there's a number of employers we've been working with on this basis. So Swiss Re is another good public case study that we can reference here. So they have a good flexible working policy in place, and it enables parental leave, part-time working, flexi hours, but they've simply extended it into this flex 50 plus, they're calling it. So over age 50, you can apply to the business to go into like a phased retirement.
Yeah.
And the business loves it because in Switzerland, particularly, they've got a shortage of experience, particularly in certain jobs that they need to keep. And your pension contribution is paid at the full rate. You work less hours per week and you phase it over 3 or 4 years. So they're simply extending the program of flexible working into a new era of flexible retirement. And people are really keen to take it up. It just piloted in February and they've had a really, really good take up. I'm catching up with them again next month to see how it's going, but generally it's very, very positive.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it seems like just a no-brainer, a really logical approach, and something which we can see. And it's interesting to me because, as you know, I'm sort of involved in a few businesses which really focus on Gen Z employees, getting them into the workplace, and actually one that has specific focus on those from a really disadvantaged background. But I don't see much in the market around trying to actually help get older workers into the workforce and make sure that companies have got an attractive employment offer. Is that something that you're sort of seeing happening much?
I'm seeing it to a certain extent. So there's a couple of startups we've been working with over the last few years that are in this area specifically. One in continental Europe, one in the UK that I've been working with. And their books are loaded with older workers who want to do stuff. The one model I think is quite interesting, and you and I have talked about this one before, and they have all sorts of openings for people. So it might just be half a day's gardening a week or half a day dog walking or caring. But actually the people who want to do those things had a professional career before.
Yeah.
And so they're now using those professional skills as well, bookkeeping, accounting, graphic design, marketing. And so they're sort of using them on this gig basis as well, with all that experience and at very, very good rates of pay. So the more that we can build that model into a corporate recruitment policy, I think it really makes an awful lot of sense. And you need a good tech platform. Basically, it's a job matching platform.
Yeah.
And you need good publicity, and you need to be able to engage people to work in this way and get the sense of purpose, the financial benefits from it. And the businesses clearly win because they have access to great experience. And the more they use them, the more they're likely to use them in future. So we've seen so far.
Yeah. Well, Yvonne, thank you so much for sharing. And we've covered a huge amount, but I think we've only sort of scratched the surface of what is a fascinating topic. So thank you